Hello and welcome to the People Pleaser podcast. This is Corie, your host, coming at you. It's April. It's got to be spring, right? It's spring. I am coming to you from my new apartment. I moved over Easter long weekend, and you can be so organized, so on the ball, but there is just something about moving that just keeps you on your toes, because there's just so many things that can inevitably go wrong. Things that you never even could have anticipated. So it was definitely one of those weekends. Also, why does moving cost like so much money? There's all these hidden expenses that you just have to pay. So I'm feeling a little like, I don't even know, like hungover from moving, just tired, a little out of sorts, a little overwhelmed. But all in all, I am really happy with my new space. My husband Brian was able to help me, which was just such a blessing. I'm so grateful to that man. And we got it done. We're still alive. And I'm ready to record my first podcast in this new space. I'm still familiarizing myself with all the little sounds that come with living in a basement suite. My last apartment, I was in an apartment building, and now I'm in a basement suite of a house. But seriously, my last apartment could not have been noisier. It was on a busy street. I was on the ground level, so I just had like access to so many sounds from so many different apartment buildings. The man above me, I became way too familiar with his sneezes, his moans, his yawns. Like, it was way too intimate. I should not know that much about a complete stranger. For this podcast, it's at peoplepleaser.pod. That's at peoplepleaser, all one word, .pod. And I'd love for you to join me on that platform and just show it a little love, because I'm not really sure where I want to go with it. And I think that having more people and more energy around it will allow me to find a bit more motivation and a bit more purpose. So if you haven't already, please follow me over on Instagram. I would love to get to know you over there on that platform. That way it's a bit more of a two-way conversation, not just me talking into your ear holes, but a chance for us to actually connect. So please, I'd love to hang with you on that on Instagram. So today is a topic that I have kind of been putting off because it felt really big and I wasn't really sure how deep to dive in. And that is the topic of people pleasers or people pleasing in relationships. So I've talked a little bit about family, I've talked about friendships, and I really do want to open the conversation to how people pleasing has shown up in my romantic relationships. And people pleasing is just kind of one lens to look at relationships through. When I started to think about the different relationships I've been in, and through this lens, I am sort of looking at the challenges of some of these relationships, or like what kind of led to their demise. So maybe not the most positive and productive conversation, but it is productive, because it's, I think, self-reflection and kind of like learning from past experiences is really productive in propelling us forward with that insight. But I mean, so as I was saying, people pleasing is one way, but also like in this conversation, I'm definitely going to be talking about codependency and attachment styles. I can't help but kind of bring in sort of how I was raised, where these types of behaviors may have come from, because I don't know about you, but like it doesn't seem that I have total control in who I'm attracted to and who's attracted to me. There is something there that feels very innate, embedded within us. I don't know that I could logically choose a romantic partner. I think that's where I can sometimes struggle, is like that head versus heart. Like, oh, logically, this is a bad idea, but my heart is completely ignoring my brain right now. And so in that sense, I feel like because our hearts are often in the driver's seat of relationships, there's something very illogical about uh, who we date, who we love, who we marry. I think logic does come in when, maybe we're thinking, okay, am I going to take this to the next step? Or am I going to marry this person? Or are we going to have kids? Like, I think logic definitely does play a role. But if I'm being honest, like, I don't actually know in my own experiences where logic's role has been. So maybe that will come a little bit more clear as I unpack this. So I do want to just extend a bit of a content warning. I will be keeping this episode, like I will be speaking about people anonymously. However, I will be talking about addiction and substance use, mental health. There are some examples of cheating and infidelity. So just really want to put that out there so you can take care of yourself and your own needs while listening or choosing not to listen today. So honestly, I feel like I was a bit of a late bloomer in the dating field. I didn't really date in high school. I was very much a like, all my friends are girls type of person. And my friendships were really important to me. And I mean, obviously I had crushes. I had big crushes on people, but I never really shared that with, like, I never revealed my crushes to them. My friends dated. I definitely had, close friends who had boyfriends. I just felt like the school, the high school, the middle school context, like, didn't really facilitate a romantic partner for me. Coincidentally, I did end up dating kind of a high school crush or middle school crush, but that was like years after we had graduated. So I did fulfill that crush, but it was after we'd graduated. So my first relationship was, I think I must have been 18, maybe 17. So that, at the time, like, I had friends who started dating when they were like 13 and 14. So it did really feel like a long chunk of time before I started to date. And my first boyfriend was somebody that I worked with at one of my first jobs. I worked at a hardware store as a cashier, and he worked in like the yard, like running the forklift and like loading lumber into people's cars. And he was a few years older than me. And we had like really good banter. Like, that was the thing that really kind of caught me early on, is that He was funny, he was cute, he was kind of like skater, like very, yeah, just kind of like um, this fun guy that I just enjoyed working with. And so we started to date, and I lost my virginity to him. He was a few years older than me, so like he could buy alcohol and we would like drink together. He was a huge pothead, and that was something that like I never really gravitated towards smoking weed, but like there was definitely like this sort of party culture. He lived with roommates, and so it was just all very like, whoa, I'm like kind of tapping into this whole new world, and there was some excitement there. And there, like, even though it was exciting, there was this like underlying discomfort throughout the entire relationship. Like I knew right away that like substances played a really big part in his life, and they didn't play a big part in my life, but I kind of allowed them to have a bigger role to match him, like to be with him. And I just kind of knew like early on that like there was aspects of the relationship that weren't serving me, but I just like went along with it anyways because I'm like, this is my first boyfriend. He's older, like, all those things you tell yourself. And he ended up cheating on me with his roommate. He had a girl roommate who I was very intimidated of. And they were both from like the same town. Like they both moved to Victoria from the same small town. And so they had this kind of like allyship there, this mutual understanding and like kind of identity. And yeah, he cheated on me. And I was devastated. But you know what? Like, I was mostly only devastated because like I no longer had a boyfriend. I don't really think that I missed him. And there was certain aspects of relief in that I didn't have to kind of like continue to play along with these lies that I was telling myself. So that was my first relationship. Not great, just in that my first boyfriend cheated on me. That's, I'm laughing because I'm like, whatever, like, screw that guy. But that sucked. Um, I then went on to date the guy that I'd met in middle school, and we had a really wonderful relationship, but I self-sabotaged throughout. Well, actually, near the end, I self-sabotaged. I was so lucky in that relationship. Like, I can't even, yeah, there's nothing I could say about him and that relationship that was bad. I felt so lucky, and yet I had a wandering eye. I was working at Starbucks at the time, and this cool guy started working there, and I just became like so curious about him and interested in him. He was a skater. Like, what is with fucking skaters? He like lived with roommates. He had this kind of party lifestyle. He was drinking, and I'm like, I just felt like that was exciting. So again, like, oh, Corie, you just, not just, several years had gone by. You were cheated on in a relationship that had all of these pieces, and yet here you are in a nice stable relationship, and you're like looking to this guy that truly is so similar to your first boyfriend. So I ended up just being shady. I ended up like wanting to hang out with this guy. I didn't want my boyfriend to like be a part of it. I was very much like, I want my own group of friends. I want to be a part of this guy and his life. And like, I basically like shoved my boyfriend out of that life in pursuit of like this flashy, exciting idea. And so we broke up, and that is like, I have so much regret around that. Not that I think we should be together today or anything like that, but like just not realizing how good I had it and like what I did to just like sabotage something really good. And so I ended up pursuing this Starbucks guy, and okay, first of all, it it was doomed to fit, yeah, it was doomed from the beginning. Like there was no way that that was going to lead to a successful relationship. Um, but he also was like dating other women, and he tried to make me think that like I was okay with that. Actually, he probably didn't try to make me think. I was probably trying to convince myself that I was okay with that. Like the idea of having him having multiple partners and me just being one of them and keeping things super casual. And I really did try to make myself think like, oh yeah, this is cool. I'm totally cool with this. I wasn't. I wasn't cool with that. That led to so many hurt feelings, so much confusion and resentment. And again, I was like trying to be someone I wasn't for the relationship, for a man. Honestly, he was a boy. So that's like kind of, we're seeing some patterns here. Um, I don't know where I am kind of in the timeline of things, but one of my next kind of romantic pursuits was someone who lived in a different town. And we had, this was like back in the Plenty of Fish days, the dating website. And I became so enthralled by this guy, and we had never met. We just had these like really, honestly, I'm going to say it, beautiful back and forth emails that we just like brought each other into each other's worlds. And, it was, we spent a lot of time like writing, and it was actually really cathartic to express myself through like a written platform like that. And we shared a lot, and we did end up meeting. He ended up coming to Victoria to meet me, and it all translated. It all was like, yes, I like you. You are who you said you were. But ultimately, I wanted that relationship a lot more than he did. And whether it was just like who I was, or just the distance, he became like less and less and less interested, less and less available. And the more he pulled away, the more I like clawed after him. And like, I'm so embarrassed to think of like some of the behaviors I kind of had in that time, where it was just this like, honestly, like desperation, like pining after someone who's like clearly not interested. And again, like very unavailable. And I'm like trying to make it make sense. And it just didn't. So that one kind of ended before it began. I actually ended up dating another high school crush. And this was like several years. And I had been infatuated with this individual all through high school. And he was like the bad boy. He was doing drugs. He was a BMXer. He was just like wreaking havoc all the time. He was just this like rebel, and I thought, "Oh my god, he is so cool." Um there was a lot about him that like you would hear, and like you never really knew if it was true. Um And so after high school, he ended up moving away, like quite far away. And while he was away, several years had passed, and he reached out to me, and he basically said, like, I'm struggling with addiction. I'm in a toxic relationship. I don't know how to get out. Like, and we really started to bond in that moment where he was like at his lowest low. And I swooped in, and I'm like, I will save you. And that is exactly what I tried to do. So he moved back home, and he was in treatment. He was coming off of opiates. He was in early recovery, just out of a very traumatizing relationship, a very codependent relationship. And I just swooped in and I'm like, I'm going to be your everything and you're going to be mine. And I assumed this caregiver role. I assumed this like white savior. I was in school at the time and I was learning all about like psychology and child development and all these things. And I literally was like reading my textbooks out loud to him, being like, it sounds like you are experiencing, and I would just be like, I don't even know, like, what did I think I was, his psychiatrist? Like, it was so gross, like, now that I think of it. And I only had good intentions, but like, Corie, God, like, I don't know. So it ended up being really bad because he relapsed, and that just wasn't in the cards for me. I hadn't anticipated that. And I was like so desperate to try and like save him and cure him and fix him. And I was just so deeply codependent, and I couldn't see out of it. I couldn't see, like, I couldn't see, to put it really clearly. And I suffocated him. I absolutely suffocated him to the point where he broke up with me. And I mean, it got really dark. It got really scary. Um, and like, we had a really beautiful friendship, and I just I didn't see it for what it was. And I mean, I don't think I had any like malicious or bad intentions. Like, I think all my intentions were really good here. I think I genuinely thought that I could be helpful, and that, but I had a very naive understanding of addiction and how, like, no one should be dating that early on in their recovery. And there should be no promises made. Like, I was so invested in a world where he wasn't an addict, but that wasn't a world he lived in. He was an addict. So I kind of was going in with these like these unrealistic expectations. And that wasn't fair to either of us. And I mean, he also played a role. Like, I'm not trying to say that it was all on me. Like, he also wanted the relationship, at a certain point. Not long after, I've dated, and I'm just kind of like capturing the big ones here. But I ended up meeting or getting together with my first husband. So there's something to maybe share, is that I'm now married to Brian. And so Brian, I have an ex-husband before Brian. And so I started my relationship with my first husband, and again, like, there was so much good in this relationship. Like, when I do look back really objectively, I do know that there was so much beauty and so much like really good stuff here. And I mean, we were together for almost 5 years. However, addiction again played a role in this relationship. Substances and other forms of addiction. And there were, I want to be really careful with my words, because I definitely don't want to drag anyone, but there were mental health, concerns that were not addressed in this relationship. And, this partner, he was very honest in his shortcomings, but I think just where he was at in his own self-discovery, he just still had work to do. And so anyways, this relationship is one that taught me a lot. However, I lied to myself and to my partner throughout the entire relationship by not setting boundaries, by not clearly articulating my needs, my discomforts. There was so much that I went along with in this relationship that I didn't appropriately deal with or acknowledge. And I know that led to a lot of resentment on both sides because he felt that I was judgmental or not accepting of him and who he was. However, it wasn't that. It was that his needs and my needs did not align, and I kind of went along until I couldn't anymore. And the moment I realized I couldn't anymore, I ended the relationship. And so it felt abrupt, it felt immediate, and honestly, I think we were both in a similar place, but completely on our own, because when I ended it, it was over and he didn't put up a fight. Neither one of us fought to mend the relationship. I think we both knew, like, these are things that we are just fundamentally different on, fundamentally incompatible on. And I think we both just decided somehow internally that, like, we weren't going to do the work. And I stand by that, like, I definitely have regrets, and I think that for me a big part of it was like not speaking my truth. And I mean, if you haven't noticed, like, there's a lot of people pleasing that has gone on through all of this, where it's just like me suffering silently, me pretending that I'm okay with things when I'm not. And y'all, I'm not even like, actually, I just have one more relationship, and then, then I will be at present day with my husband. But so after that relationship with my first husband, um, that was really hard because, you know what? I was in my early 30s and I was single. I was divorced. And at that time, that was like, whoa, like, some of my friends are just getting married or, like, aren't even married yet, and I'm divorced. And so I definitely had, I spent some time feeling pretty sorry for myself and just confused. Like, my identity was so confused. Like, when you marry someone, you can't help but just begin to plan your life with that person in it. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, back to the drawing board. And so I had dated pretty much right away after my marriage ended. Don't recommend that. But you know what? No harm was done. I was very honest with the people I was dating, with where I was at, and it just, like, I wasn't meeting any soulmates in that time. Um, I did end up in another relationship, and again, this was someone who had a history of drug addiction, and this person was such an anomaly to me because, I mean, and my heart really did go out to him because he is an example of someone who got addicted to drugs um, through a medical procedure and being prescribed painkillers and overprescribed. And that just led to um, a whole host of lifelong challenges. And when I met him, he kind of shared the highlight reel. And you know what? I wasn't asking any questions. I was blissfully unaware, and I wanted to just take him at face value, believe everything he said. And as the truth began to come out, I swallowed it. I just took it and I'm like, you know what? I'm already this far in. That's fine. And he would give me these little nuggets over a long period of time. And next thing you know, I'm in a relationship. I'm in love with a heroin addict, an active heroin addict. And my heart breaks for him. And you know what? I'm going to just take a moment and I just hope that he is doing okay. And it was so hard for me to leave this relationship because my heart broke for him. And this was what was so challenging in this relationship was trying to like get back to myself and to take care of myself, to like dig myself out of the rubble and be like, no, Corie, you deserve to be cared for too. It's okay for you to have needs. It's okay for you to not be okay with this. And it's okay for you to walk away from someone who is struggling. And that was such a moral trip because I was walking away from someone at their lowest low. But like, it was also one of the lowest lows I've ever been in. And the reality too was that like I was in that all alone because I was so protective of his integrity and his, you know, how people perceived him, how people perceived me being in a relationship with him. I didn't want to hear it from anyone. I was trying to just take it all on, and I did that all alone. So when I finally did end the relationship and I came to my mom and my best friends and I told them what had been going on, like no one knew. And that is just like so crazy to me that like that I went that far. So I learned a lot about myself through that. And, you know, I learned a lot about my capacity, and I learned a lot about how, like, I can take on more than I should. I can take on way more than I should. And so that was a true lesson in, like, boundaries, self-care. And I'm not perfect. But I can safely say that I won't be in a situation like that ever again. I kind of know, I know the warning signs. I know that like my gut has never lied to me. My brain tries to lie to me, but my gut does not lie to me. And so that brings me to my current relationship with my beautiful, loving husband, Brian. And we have a host of challenges, being that we're in a long distance relationship in 2 different countries. But there are just so many ingredients for success in our relationship. And honestly, I think that our long distance relationship has lended to some of that because our communication is just so spot on. We speak every single day. We FaceTime every single day. He can read me like a book. He's very self-aware. He's on his own healing journey. He has his own support network that he accesses regularly. And I'm doing the same. And he is not a people pleaser. And he, you know, we can both fall into some codependent behaviors, but like we also call each other on it. Like he calls me out on my people pleasing or calls me in. It's very loving, or, you know, there's humor to it. And we're not, you know, we're not immune to challenges. Like there will be challenges, but I'd like to think that now that I'm, 37, I have this long history of different relationships and different ways of showing up and different teachings and different learnings and different failures. And I'm just, we're always building. We're building up our own toolkit, our resources, our supports. I have so much context. I have so many examples of like things that have worked or haven't worked. And it's quite amazing to see how far I've come. And people pleasing, like, Brian calls me on it, and it's so helpful to have somebody who can like see me doing it, because he doesn't want to be on the receiving end of my people pleasing. Like, he isn't like, oh yeah, like he's not getting off on that. He wants me to be a strong, independent woman. He wants me to have a voice. He wants me to have opinions. He wants me to disagree with him. He wants me to challenge him. Like, he invites so much of me out. And that is just such a blessing for someone like me. And I'm just learning that, like, my people pleasing is dishonest. It's lying. It's lying to myself. It's lying to Brian. And like, I don't want that. Like, I just have such love for Brian, for myself, for our relationship, that like, I only want to be honest and authentic. And I have my moments. Like, do not do not forget, like, I truly do have my moments where like, one example I have been thinking about a lot lately and have spoke to my therapist about, is because we have these FaceTime calls, and Brian is well aware of this example. So we often start the call, well, like, he'll ask me how I am and I'll ask him how he is, and our interpretation of that question is so different. So when I ask Brian how he is, he will often launch into telling me all about his day, like from the minute he woke up to everything that happened. And so it can be, 20 minutes before he then asks me how I am. And when he asks me how I am, like, I'm thinking of it more of like, how are you? Like, how are you in this moment? How is your energy? How, just how are you feeling? And so if he doesn't ask me first, and then it's finally my turn to answer, I'm like, I'm fine. And I'm just like pissed off because I feel like my needs they've gone unnoticed for 20 minutes. But that's not Brian's fault. And that's, like, that is something I have total control over. And so my therapist is like, hey, have you ever thought about being like, hey, Brian, before you tell me all about your day, like, do you mind if I just share, a little bit about me? Or like, can you ask me how I am? And she's really encouraging me to like use a playfulness, which I really appreciate, because Brian's all about playfulness, and so am I. So again, it's like, Brian's like, you asked me. and the other thing that happens is, if he's like, no, I want to hear about your day, or I want to hear about you, if he tries to like redirect, I'll be like, I'm fine. And like, so I'm just being, I don't know what I'm being, but it's unhelpful. And so it's a pattern that I'm trying to break out of. And I mean, Brian's very aware of it, so he is helping me with that. And it's, again, me trying to tend to his needs, and he's trying to tend to my needs at the same time. And I'm like, no, I'm going to tend to your needs more and first and louder. And he's like, no, I'm trying to tend to your needs. And I'm like, too bad. I already decided that I'm tending to your needs, and I'm going to be upset about you not tending to my needs. It's weird. I don't know where that comes from or what that is, but it is people pleasing. And it's annoying. It's annoying for me. It's annoying for Brian. So my aim here was to paint a picture of kind of a chronology of my own patterns and relationships, and how there's many patterns. You probably were able to see them pretty clearly. Codependency, addiction, caregiving, insecure attachment. It's all wrapped up into, into these different relationships. And I'm not going to go into the whole like psychoeducational side of things, but a lot of these patterns do mimic patterns I saw growing up. Mostly, if I'm being honest, like in my dad and in my relationship with my dad, and addiction was present. Insecure attachment, just being that he lived in a different city from me. There was some emotional vulnerability in our relationship. So it isn't rocket science. I think I have spoke enough. This is definitely my longest episode. And if you're still here listening, I appreciate you so much. And I appreciate your willingness to just see me, hear me in my vulnerability. This is pretty raw. And so I do hope that, maybe this has been helpful to you in your own journey. And I hope it's allowed you to get to know me on a deeper level. And as always, I welcome any feedback, any conversation. You can find me over on Instagram at what is it? at peoplepleaser.pod. And that's it for today. So thank you very much for being here. And I will catch you on the next episode. Bye, everybody.